Thank you. Ranking Member Booker.
Can I just pick up, actually, it's an area that I don't know as much about as my colleague, but I am familiar with some of the undersea cable activity. For example, from Tanzania to Zanzibar, there was this extraordinary project that of an infrastructure investment that helped deal with rolling blackouts and a lot of other problems, just really critical infrastructure being built. My concern is that I know that was an MCC project. And with our pulling back of resources, it not only seems to be hurting U.S. companies, but also the kind of alliances that make our infrastructure investments in Africa competitive with all that China seems to be offering. Do you have a perspective on the value of what has been a bipartisan program in MCC and the value it plays in things like the laying of these cables and the critical infrastructure that China is rushing into Africa to provide?
Sure. Thank you, Senator, again for the question on this very important topic. So the MCC is still moving forward with compacts. I understand there was a reexamination of a number of them, but it's certainly not ruled out that the MCC would form new compacts going forward. What I would say on investment with subsea cables specifically, so 70% of the investment towards subsea cable infrastructure is by U.S. technology, what they call hyperscaler companies, Google and Meta, that have invested billions of dollars in Africa, but across the world in the build out of subsea cables. So that still today is the vast majority of investment, even to those investments that might not seem economical now. Now, what our Cyberspace and Digital Policy Bureau has done is invested in some of those connections from kind of the outer coast actually to make those landings. So those are things that are still going on, still certainly a priority. But if you'd like more information on that specific...
No, I'm appreciative of your expertise. Trust me. It's grateful for me, and I'm expanding my knowledge on this issue in particular. But just to go back to what you said, so clearly the MCC has an impactful role. It's a program that's been supported in a bipartisan manner. The value of it, I know you said there's been no necessarily new compacts or retreating from that, but you could testify here to the value of the program.
Senator, my understanding is that compacts are still moving forward.
No, but the compacts themselves are valuable, yes? In terms of our strategic relationships, infrastructure, American companies, they're valuable, correct?
I would say that the MCC itself, when they move forward with projects that the administration, Secretary Rubio, determines are valuable, I would say that those programs...
Did Ted cut your mic? No?
I think maybe I ran out of time, but yes, I would say that the projects that the MCC pursues, new projects and compacts that are preserved, I think that they're preserved because they have value. I'm not sure on the specific project that you're talking
Understood.
about.
Let me continue. Again, this is not my area of expertise, but I was surprised on one of my visits recently to West Africa, how both American companies like Google came to me, as well as people that were trying to partner in some of these West African countries, said that the American desire was there, the intention was there, but some of the corruption specifically in those countries, and a lot of people at the State Department were saying to me, we're doing a lot of really work here helping these nations battle corruption to make it a better environment. But some of those programs that help with democracy seem to have been pulled back, not seem to have been pulled back. And I guess if you can comment to me the need in many ways where U.S. business interests meet the State Department's work on anti-corruption efforts, especially in some of the West African countries where often present great business opportunities but undermine things like laying of these cables that support great American companies.
Sure. Thank you, Senator, for that question. I think a lot of that work on market reforms and structuring some of those bids and those concessions go through the Department of Commerce, their commercial advocacy program, the CLDP program.
I know a lot of the sources of them, but net the resources are being cut back, correct?
So, Senator, on foreign aid broadly or additional resources towards Africa, I think fundamentally what the administration has done is really rethought how to make sure American tax dollars go as far as they can and how they are well spent. So, for example, Secretary Rubio signing with the Kenyan president of the $1.6 billion health aid package. I think during those remarks, he said, rather than enriching NGOs in Northern Virginia, the intention now is to ensure that those governments can scale up their own capacity.
I recognize. Let me go in the limited seconds I have left. Ms. Nardi, forgive me for that. Ms. Nardi, in your opening a written testimony, you mentioned that INL is providing direct maritime law enforcement training and building partnerships in the region. This is, even when I was a mayor, the federal government, we put Newark police officers with lots of federal agencies. It was just a great partnership, mentoring, and I love to see that on the international level. It's a force multiplier in many ways, and I'm grateful that this is a tradition in our country. But I'm concerned about the cuts here as well. The Trump administration wants to cut funding according to their budget for programs like this by 80 to 90%. For example, the FY26 budget included drastic cuts to NIL program funding, proposing a cut of $1.16 billion to the International Narcotics Control and Law Enforcement Programs account, leaving only $125 million remaining. Congress rejected this proposal in the current CR, but I'm concerned about your ability, the agency's ability to continue these mentoring programs that are doing such vital work as you've testified to. Will dramatic cuts of 80, 90% really undermine our effectiveness in this kind of interdiction and work in general, but also the mentoring that gives that force multiplier?
Well, thank you, Senator, for the question and also for your support for this kind of programming. And we're already seeing very good results with it, particularly in the counter-narcotics area. So thank you for that. The approach that we have in Africa is regional for the most part, because if China or a TCO finds a vulnerability in one country, they'll go there. But if those countries are shored up, then they just move on to the next one and the next one. Part of the problem that we've seen is these countries, one, within the country itself are stovepipe and don't talk to each other, but they don't talk to their neighboring countries as well. So the majority of our programs are regional in nature. So on West Africa, we have WARSI, the West Africa Regional Security Initiative, and on the East, EATOC, which is East Africa Transnational Organized Crime. I say this because that includes 12 different countries that go all the way down the coast, focusing on maritime security. And what we did was create, with these countries, 2 centers of excellence, one Djibouti and one in the Seychelles, to do training on vessel boarding and on investigations and on exchange of information. We have also gotten these countries to work together with a regional maritime intel fusion center that's in Madagascar, here again, so that they exchange information. If a ship is coming down that looks like it's sort of suspicious, but it's in somebody else's waters, you can let them know that it's coming and hopefully they take action. The fact that we do these things regionally means we are not investing a lot of money in each of the countries.
I agree. I'm way over time, and I'm treading on the indulgences of my friend who, but I will just say that American leadership, American Coast Guard, military, I've been on the continent and I've seen the greatness of our country in practice, and you're describing that to us. I'm just worried about its ability to sustain those levels, or in fact, increase them as the challenges grow greater. And again, this body has, in a bipartisan fashion, supported the resources. I would hate to see them cut in the way that the proposed budget is. The consequences of that, for not just the regional security you're describing, but for American interests, would be dramatic. So thank you, and thank you for your indulgence, sir.